And many, many people will be approaching our conversation today thinking about their bookkeeping business and about the tools that they might be using in their bookkeeping business and the productivity that they might get in their bookkeeping business and so on. And they will actually completely forget about just how important it is to use these tools to deliver an awesome client experience. When we deliver really great bookkeeping, what does the client get?
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be an awesome one. Our guest is an experienced entrepreneur who is the co-founder and CEO of Receipt Bank, which is software that extracts the key data from your bills, receipts, and invoices and publishes it directly into your accounting or bookkeeping software. Alexis Prenn, welcome to the podcast.
Michael, thank you very much indeed for the warm welcome. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes. And, Alexis, your business, I saw Receipt Bank actually at a bookkeeping conference recently here in the Toronto area called the Institute of Professional Bookkeepers annual conference. And I was right next to the Receipt Bank booth. And I got to tell you, a lot of people pretty excited about Receipt Bank and were signing up in droves. So I am really interested in learning more and helping our audience, if they haven't already learned more about Receipt Bank. But before we do that, tell us about yourself. Tell us your background leading up to starting Receipt Bank.
Michael, certainly. Receipt Bank, interestingly enough, is a business that's 7 years old. We were founded in September of 2010. Rather bizarrely, in the SaaS technology world that we live in, we are a 7-year-old startup. And we're a 7-year-old startup because of the rate of growth, the rate of revenue growth that we have sustained over 4 or 5 years. So in excess of 100% for the last 4 or 5 years. And it's a little bit of a stale joke, but I always say to people that if the Receipt Bank is a 7-year-old startup, that would make me a 55-year-old teenager. So my background is that my head office is in London. Receipt Bank has offices in Sydney, in Paris, in London, in Washington, D.C., and we just opened, I think probably a better way to describe it is probably a desk, but soon to be an office in South Africa, and we're also looking at opening in Canada in 2018. So we have quite a wide geographic spread. We literally started the business, my partner, co-founder Michael Wood and I, purely because in traditional startup terms, Michael was just terrible with his receipts. It's really as simple as that. And to show you how far the world of technology has moved, we started with basically offering clients a mail-in service, and we offered them the miraculous turnaround time of 72 hours. So we were literally from day one, we were focused on supplying these services to accountants. We knew quite a few accountants from my previous business, which was an investment business, and we had sold our investment products to high net worth clients through their accountants. And so I knew quite a lot of accountants. And when we came up with this idea of essentially expenses, we went to these same accountants, and all of them, in the space over 3 weeks or so, all of them said to us, no, this is very interesting, but what we want you to take care of is not just the receipts. We want you to take care of the invoices and the credit notes, essentially all of the costs of the business. Clients of theirs were happy to raise sales invoices, but none of them were interested in basically handling the costs. And after 3 weeks of saying, no, you have to understand we have a strategy, I think the modern word is pivoted into something called bookkeeping productivity. So it's very appropriate that you and I should be talking today, because since October of 2010, Receipt Bank has basically been a pioneer in trying to increasingly simplify and indeed automate bookkeeping workflows. And so that's the nature of the business we are today. So just in terms of scale, we are, I think this week, we just broke 300 employees, and we have raised over $80 million US, the last funding round being in July, basically to spread the word, to develop the technology and the software that our clients need, and to sustain our growth at this sort of 100% plus annual growth rate in the years to come. So is that helpful?
It's very helpful. It's very interesting. I love the story. I mean, what's interesting about our audience listener right now is that they work with people like you. They work with business owners, entrepreneurs, people that are either starting up a business or have been running a business for years. I mean, it really doesn't matter. And so whilst it's interesting, and we're going to get into a lot of the conversation about how this tool really helps our audience of bookkeepers, but it's also interesting to be in the mind of their client, of their customer. And I love the story of how, you're solving a personal problem for your partner, and then it evolved and grew into something that is, it's just remarkable. The growth and where you are today. And I mean, it sounds like we're just at the very, base camp, if you will, of where you're going with your company. So my hat is off to you for sure.
Well, Michael, that's cool. Just to sort of, because you raise a very, very interesting point. In fact, I would like to congratulate you because you're the first person to do so. The point that you made about essentially a client experience. And many, many people will be approaching our conversation today thinking about their bookkeeping business and about the tools that they might be using in their bookkeeping business and the productivity that they might get in their bookkeeping business and so on. And they will actually completely forget about just how important it is to use these tools to deliver an awesome client experience. When we deliver really great bookkeeping, what does the client get? What is the client getting at the moment? What is cloud accounting apps allow bookkeepers around the world to deliver an awesome client experience that they couldn't previously do when their clients were mailing them in envelopes. The materials were being processed on a desktop solution, and maybe at the end of the year they were getting some kind of annual report or annual tax return as a result of whatever they were doing. And so the opportunity today is very much about what do these tools actually allow you, the bookkeeping owner, the bookkeeping practice owner, to do, not only in terms of boosting your own productivity, and generally speaking, and you'll know much more about this than I do, but generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, I work on the basis that a typical bookkeeper is looking after approximately 10 clients. Sometimes there are a few more, sometimes there are a few less, depends on the nature of the clients themselves, but generally it's 1 to 10. And a bookkeeper using modern tools, using Receipt Bank, for example, using, I'm sure, the kind of workflows and processes that are advocated in pure bookkeeping, should be getting a ratio of 1 to 30, 1 to 40, 1 to 50. So a 3, 4, 5 times boost in their productivity. And one of the challenges I'm sure many, many of your listeners have got is, I've got a successful business, but I cannot find quality staff. And what these kind of productivity gains allow people to do is to expand significantly their revenues and their profits without actually increasing their staff. And in fact, actually, you might enjoy the very first accounting customer that we secured back in 2011. I promised her all kinds of wonderful things were going to happen to her and indeed to her clients as a result of adopting Receipt Bank. And she nodded very wisely at me. And 3 months after starting to work with Receipt Bank, she moved to a much, much smaller office and just saved on the rent. And that was a wonderful lesson in what technology can offer you, perhaps slightly unexpectedly.
Beautiful. I love it. And, there's a few things you said there that we should unpack. Client experience is, I actually don't think, I think you're bang on with that message. I don't think a lot of people are thinking about the end result, what this is actually doing. And it's a mindset that I think if the listener right now can grapple is going to have them lift their head really, really high, because what essentially is happening when you're using products like Receipt Bank and, of course, Pure Bookkeeping, you're improving the efficiencies. And Receipt Bank, we're talking about 1 to 4 time productivity lift, is that you're giving information much more quickly to your clients as well. And back in the day, as you mentioned, it was like, we were talking about an autopsy on the finances, whereas now we can get to real time what's happening and in the books, and what can we do about it, so that we do have some power and control over shifting the business and making better decisions based on that. And that, for small business, was not available just a few years ago. I mean, it would the cost to get there would just not be likely that they would invest to get that data. So that this is what's happening now, is that the bookkeeper can actually be a leader in helping business owners drive growth and improve and business improvement. And I think that's pretty awesome. I mean, that's what I hold in my head all the time, going out there to service my clients. That's what I'm trying to do for our clients, and that's what they're doing for their clients.
Mike, you're absolutely right. Just to really just continue on that theme, which is that I remember 5 years ago, in fact, actually, it was my wife's bookkeeper telling me, but Alexis, you have to understand, my clients aren't interested. My clients aren't interested in the data. They aren't interested in the reporting. And I remember thinking, well, that's a bit odd. And it was only really when I understood a bit more that I realized that, in fact, actually, as a small business owner, why would you be interested if the data is 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 months out of date? Why would you be remotely interested in the data? But as soon as you start to look at something, in our practice management application, practice platform, we look at it, we have a metric called client delay. And what we try and do is we try and basically encourage our bookkeeping and accounting partners to focus on minimizing client delay. How long does the client hang on to that document? Because if they hang on to it a long time, it's clearly going to be out of date. Their accounts payable will be out of date, their reimbursements will be out of date. So much hangs off speed with which that data can be processed. And so we give people visibility around, how long is your client delay for the practice? How long is your client delay for the individual clients? Clients who submit regularly don't churn. It's just, they simply don't churn. So it's good practice to do so. And as a bookkeeping owner, suddenly you're in a situation where if your clients are submitting regularly, you have to go into their files regularly. The idea that you can just look at their files on the third Wednesday of the month at 3:00 is out of date. And you are the person who's actually holding up delivering that client experience, not the client. And it used to be the client, now it's you. And a lot of the bookkeepers around the world need to be thinking about, it's like cutting the grass, someone said to me, little and often. You have to go into the file 2 times a week just to keep it up to date, to make sure the bank rec is tidied up. Clients may not be bookkeepers or accountants, but they can spot untidiness. And then they wonder what they're paying for.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it is so interesting from the fact that this delay, and what did you call it? It's the delay factor?
The client delay. It's a client delay.
Client delay.
And it's not unusual to have client delay, well over 30 days. Really, really good practices. Our outstanding accounting partner has a client delay of 3 days. That means his clients are hanging on average, to their paperwork, basically no more than a week. So they're in a restaurant, or they receive an invoice, or whatever it is, and the delay is 3 days. So if he actually is coming into the books regularly and reconciling, those books are up to date basically on a 3-day cycle. So that's pretty close to real-time accounting. That's pretty close to real-time information. But there are plenty of firms out there who have client delays well in excess of 30 days.
Beautiful. And that's a wonderful metric to be thinking about. And there's a great saying in sales, and and you've probably heard it: sell them what they want, deliver what they need. And so,
Yeah.
have you heard that one before?
I actually haven't, but it's a good one.
Yeah, sell them what they, and it comes from my mentor and partner, Peter Cook, is where I heard it first. But really, if we think of this situation, my clients don't want reporting. And right? It's like, okay, what do they want? They want business growth. They want peace of mind. They want, to be successful. And so essentially, if we talk about client delay and these sorts of metrics, we're just changing the language a little bit to say, what we're delivering is your ability to have peace of mind, your ability to grow faster, your ability to know and have certainty around your finances. The reporting is how you deliver that and how you make that happen. It's what they need. And they don't know that they need that and they don't really want it. But if you can position it in that way, tools like Receipt Bank, tools like Peer Bookkeeping, tools like the QBO and Xero and these different tools out there that are now give us this ability, like you say, to get to a 3-day window where we're up to date. As we've mentioned, that wasn't there just a few years ago. So it's exciting times that we can actually sell them what they want and easily deliver what they need.
And crucially, we start to move away from a purely price-based conversation with clients to a client experience.
Yeah.
And I would just emphasize that at the moment, and maybe for the vast majority of people today, the small business owner, in terms of the frequency with which they submit their documents, the number one pain point for bookkeepers around the world is actually getting the document. The number one pain point by a country mile is getting the documents. And when you think about it, what is in it for the small business owner if you're just going to sit on them? So the important thing is if people start submitting, is that you start to turn their documents around, that their accounts are up to date on twice a week is probably not a bad idea, just little and often. And suddenly the information starts to flow. The pain point for the bookkeeper is diminished. And by the way, not only is it a pain point, it's a cost. All of the nagging and whatever, not only is it a cost in terms of time, but it's also a cost in terms of a client experience, and ultimately people will just simply walk because they're just fed up. So the opportunity to do these things little and often, to feed back to the clients what they're, how up to date their books are, you are much, much more likely, if you give them something back, for them to give you what you need. And you need the documentation to be able to do the GST, PST, VAT, tax returns, whatever it might be. And if we turn those around promptly, quickly, and give them the insights, then they are much, much more likely to supply us with the raw materials we need to do the compliance work that is the foundation of our business.
It's so interesting, this conversation. I mean, I think it's coming at it at an angle that we haven't tackled before. And I love the fact that, you've worked with so many firms all over the world, and that, the number one pain point is getting these documents. And what this is all about is changing behaviors for people and creating new systems and process that support them. And change takes time. Change is difficult, but once you build that new habit, that new muscle, it then becomes the new way. I think this is a real opportunity for bookkeepers to show leadership. I was speaking with someone just the other day, and they were saying, they were making some mistakes in their business, and their boss was saying, oh, you shouldn't make these mistakes. You got to get this right. And she had said the boss's wife actually came to her and pulled her aside and said, look, the mistake you're making, he made 12 times right before he got it right. So a lot of your clients, even though they make...
And that's not a gender-based remark, is it, Michael? We're not saying that men make 12 times more mistakes than women. That's not what we're saying here. Is that correct?
Well, we probably could say it.
We probably could.
We probably could say it. But my dad used to always say, you're allowed to make 10,000 mistakes, and then you need to quit.
Fair enough.
So, we all make mistakes, but the point being that often people forget that it's almost this curse of knowledge. When you know what you know, sometimes you don't share with others that you do know that. And sometimes you don't even really know that you know it, and you're not aware that other people don't know it. And with bookkeepers and their clients, entrepreneurs like yourself, type A drivers, they have to give the air of, we're going to make this work. We know what we're doing. Even though when you started Receipt Bank, it's likely you didn't know what the heck you were doing. You were like, we're just doing what we're doing. We think we know where we're going, but you're pivoting. You mentioned that, right? You pivot.
We had no idea. We had absolutely no idea. So the first thing I normally have to say to people is, we're not an expenses management business. We were for 3 weeks back in 2010. And after 3 weeks, we moved into bookkeeping productivity. So from day one, we have been firmly. So I should say from week 4, I should say technically, we have been in the bookkeeping productivity business. And what that meant changed in 2011, 2012. Changed again in 13, 14. It changed again in 15, 16, and it's changing again today. And as I look at the plans that we have for 2018 in terms of what we can enable our clients to do on behalf of their customers, there is another step change in terms of speed. There is another step change in terms of anticipating what needs to happen to make this go quickly, and the way that we can, between the bookkeeper, clients, and Receipt Bank, the way that we can shape that end client experience. And by the way, nobody knows what that looks like. Literally nobody. Nobody has a clue. In my mind, it's an empty room, and we have an opportunity to decide whether it's carpet or hardwood floors. We have an opportunity to decide whether it's wallpaper or paint, blinds or curtains. The client experience for the small business owner, what is going to make them happier with the bookkeeping service that they receive, perhaps more profitable, perhaps growing, perhaps more, less likely to get into financial difficulty, and perhaps their finances are in such a meticulous state that lending decisions become easier. These are all things that I hope over the course of the next 1 to 3 years that we can explore together, and using our imagination, perhaps come up with things that nobody's ever thought of.
I agree. I think that's the leadership opportunity for bookkeepers, is that they're just like you, their clients don't necessarily know where they're going, but they may put on the air that they do, and they need to. That's the brave face that they need to have. But don't let that detract you. You know what you know. You have the ability to bring exciting technology and exciting information and knowledge to them that will help them get there faster and be their guide, if you will, to navigating the financial end of things. And so that's what I see as being really exciting of where we're at right now and where we're going, is that the tools have never been there at the price that they are at now. It's almost democratizing. I think it was Mark Benioff used to say all the time. Mark Benioff was the CEO, is the co-founder and CEO of Salesforce.com, massive company. I'm sure you've heard of them.
Yep.
He would always say, we're democratizing software, where it used to cost $150,000 to buy a piece of software, a license to a piece of software. They're giving it to a company for $1,500 a year, right? And that is giving the upper hand on small business. So bookkeepers are small business owners. They work with small business owners. This is a great and exciting time to be in small business.
I couldn't agree with you. More. I would just simply add just one small detail to that in terms of software. I had lunch with probably our number one bookkeeping partner, and 2 years ago he was using exactly the same software that he is today. And 2 years ago he was nowhere near as good as he is today. His practice. And I wrote him. I can't take any credit for this, but I wrote him a note 2 years ago when I saw him. I wrote him a note saying, I was surprised at the conversation that we didn't have. We didn't have conversations around the number of clicks or the number of pages that his staff had to go through in order to achieve outcomes that they needed to do regularly every day, and the amount of time that he and his staff were wasting. We were not having that kind of detailed conversation. And anyway, amazingly, 2 years on, as a result of his tremendous attention to detail, he has built a really outstanding bookkeeping practice. All of the metrics that we have demonstrate, a tremendous attention to detail. And I would just encourage your listeners not to think that just taking out a subscription solves the problem. It may solve some of the problem, but in terms of making the most of what you bought, in terms of making the most of what you're using, it is really about attention to detail. And the other thing I would add to that is how generous people are with their expertise and their knowledge in this community. It is one of the extraordinary features of internet connectivity is how willing people are to share their solutions, share their wisdom, share their best practice. And so when you set out as a bookkeeper, when you set out on this journey, don't feel that you're on your own, that there are plenty of people, suppliers, advisors, and indeed firms such as yours, Michael, who are there to help you on that journey. And all I would just urge you to do is it's about attention to detail.
Love it. That is, I will second that. It's an incredible community. There is no question that people are there to help you, and every organization that I've interacted with as well. So it's pretty exciting times. Now let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about where people can, what is the best way for people to learn about how to have Receipt Bank helping them get there faster?
That's a very good question. So the first thing is, obviously you just go to receiptbank.com and you just request a callback. But what's interesting about it, there are really two sort of questions that are going through your mind. One is the nature of the product, and you can do reviews. You can look at the reviews. We are the number one rated app on the Xero community page. We have more reviews, more 5-star reviews. We are also highly rated in the QBO community. We also, they have a rating system, but also Sage and Sage 1. So the primary softwares, we are probably the market leader. We are the market leader in bookkeeping productivity. So you can be confident that there is a very good product there. In many ways, people will ring up and they say, well, I'd like to have a trial or a demo or whatever. I'm always slightly curious as to what exactly, in a trial, what exactly are they trialing? Are they trialing the software's reliability? Are they trialing, what exactly are their hopes and dreams? And I think in many ways the question for your listeners is to start off with something pretty simple, which is, actually, I'm doing data entry, I'm doing data extraction, my staff are doing data entry, my clients are doing data entry. Do I really think that in this day and age that this is a good use of my time? And if you start off probably with that simple question in your mind, then you're basically starting on a cloud journey and not actually setting yourself up for trying to set out to achieve too much too soon. Very often, yes, we have all kinds of advanced capabilities, automations and buttons and filters and so on. But I really, one needs to start a journey with the beginning. And a good place to start is to say, well, if you or your staff or your clients are doing any data entry, then you need to ring Receipt Bank. That's number one. Number two is actually the quality of two things. One is the account managers that you deal with. Do they actually have the knowledge? One of the extraordinary things, I used to be in the clothing business many, many years ago, and we were constantly having to handle new materials and new fabrics as fashions changed. And of course, we relied heavily on the suppliers to help us how to use these materials in the most economic fashion. So I would urge your listeners to be open to the idea of being helped, to ask for help, because all of the account managers at Receipt Bank speak to, every week they're speaking to hundreds of accounting firms, bookkeeping firms around the world. Guess what? You're not unique. They've seen this problem before. And when we talk about problems, one of the things I would add is have a clear idea as to what your objective is in terms of parts of your workflow that you want to automate, but also have an idea of, do I want to go home early? Is this a work-life balance question? Is this a productivity question because I'm getting more and more clients coming through the door? Is it a question of margins? Is it a question of office space? What problem are I actually trying to solve? And if you can actually put those questions or those objectives to the account managers. They will help you on that journey, depending on what you're trying to achieve.
I sort of, in the back of my mind, sort of go, okay, well, what's my pathway when I'm looking at something new? And it really is, I think you nailed it. It's people want to see, how's this going to make my life better? And prove it to me, almost prove it. It's like, because we're all time starved. So we want to quickly understand, hey, will this make my life better? And there's no better way than seeing other people having their life be better by something, right? So checking out those, and you've mentioned a few people that have been working with you for a while. I'm going to reach out. We'll have them on our podcast to talk about Receipt Bank and what they're doing. And I'm sure they're using other apps and cool things that they're doing. I think that's helpful for our listener to hear the story. We have a lot of other bookkeepers that come onto the show to talk about what they're doing and how they're getting to their own success. And lastly, you nailed it with the why, right? The big why. Why do this? Because if you want to go home earlier, it is about productivity. Yeah. It's about doing things smarter, working smart, so you can get what you want in your life. And I don't think there's too many people out there that want to stay late. They want to get home and get with their family, right? So get over to Receipt Bank. Ask your community, who else is using it. I can say that the reason Receipt Bank is on this is they are a verified, validated, awesome piece of software that's helping bookkeepers in our community. That's why we bring them to the show. So you want to check this out. This is definitely a piece of your future, and see how it can fit into your firm and get you to successful faster. So this has been so great having you on the show today.
Michael, thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure. I think the time is now. There are tremendous opportunities for people if they want them. Opportunities to get work-life balance. Opportunities to make more money. Opportunities to build actually a very, very significant bookkeeping firms, or opportunities to actually just shape the client experience that is distinctive to the individual firm. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve, but there are tremendous opportunities. Any of the above, probably loads more that I haven't actually mentioned, can be achieved right now at very exciting times.
Yeah, that brings up a good point, actually. And we were talking before we actually started doing the interview. You mentioned that, if you weren't doing what you were doing, you'd be starting a bookkeeping business.
Yes, I would. I would definitely. On Monday morning, if I wasn't doing what I was doing, I would be starting a bookkeeping firm. It is tremendously exciting. In the last, the most exciting thing 35 years ago were, the advent of the personal computer and the small business accounting software that we see emerging around the world with MYOB, with Sage, with QuickBooks, and indeed in the Toronto, not in the Toronto, I was going to say FreshBooks, but that's obviously much later, but the primary desktop suppliers around the world. And that was 35 years ago. And now we find ourselves in a situation where the number of apps, the number of capabilities, the speed with which these things can be done, the value that can be delivered back to clients is an extraordinary opportunity to do things that has not been done before. And so I sound like I'm perhaps quoting a little bit from Star Trek, but now is an opportunity to boldly go into the future. And I hope some of your listeners will take that opportunity.
I think they will, and I really love that you've mentioned that, because it is part of the purpose of this podcast is to inspire our listener. And, I think often the listener is out there doing it by themselves, doing it alone, and building a business is never easy. But when you can hear about others that are doing it, and you can hear that, you've picked a good, and in fact, a great industry to be in, and a great opportunity for the future to grow a business to any size that you want. Just know you're on the right track. Keep going, keep learning, be clear where you want to get to, and the tools and the people and the support are available if you want to get there. And and it can be very quick in today's marketplace. So exciting. And I just have to tip my hat to you, Alexis. It's so great to have you on the show. You're an entrepreneur. You're a very nice person. You've got a well-rounded personality, and I've had a lot of fun just interacting with you today.
Michael, thank you very much indeed. It's been a real treat, and I hope to get another invitation at some point in the future.
That's an absolute yes to that one.
Thank you.
That wraps another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's amazing guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.